Crisis podcast will touch on sensitive topics regarding the human body, sexuality, pregnancy, and all aspects of women's health care, and it may not be suitable for all listeners.
I'm Kate.
And I'm PR.
And this is the Midwife Crisis podcast, Microsode, the podcast where you learn it's not just you.
This is where we answer listener emails, readdress previous episodes, and importantly, share our self-care.
So important. So today we wanted to actually discuss a meme that we saw. It was reposted by Scary Mommy on their Instagram.
I love Scary Mommy.
Yep, they're great, via @TheMotherDoctor. And we'll be reposting it on our Instagram and our Facebook in conjunction with this episode so you guys can see it. But basically it reads, prenatal visits, 12, infant visits, 7, postpartum visits, 1. It's time to change the dynamic in healthcare for new mothers.
What does that mean, 12-7-1?
So the amount of times that you're seen. So for many people during their pregnancy, we see them multiple times. I would say 12 is probably average, 12 or 13 times.
Okay.
And then infant visits, I'm assuming means in the first year how often you bring your baby in for visits. And then, yeah, a lot of times the postpartum visit is just the one visit. And actually last year, or I guess 2 years now, holy moly, 2020.
It is 2020.
It's 2020.
And I actually knew what that meant, but I wanted everyone else to know what we were talking about too. Of course I knew what those meant.
Just in case you guys thought she didn't know, she knows.
Yeah.
So in May 2018, ACOG came out with one of their committee opinions, committee opinion number 736. And ACOG, for you guys who don't know, is basically the governing body for obstetrics and gynecology for physicians. Ours for midwives is ACNM. But ACOG came out with this opinion. It said, all women should ideally have contact with a maternal care provider within the first 3 weeks postpartum. This initial assessment should be followed up with ongoing care as needed, concluding with a comprehensive postpartum visit no later than 12 weeks after birth. Yeah. And so let me just ask you, PR, how many times were you seen postpartum?
Once per altogether or per child? Or
So
I have 3 children.
Right,
I was seen
right.
3 times.
Right. Yeah. So
That's not true. I had a little complication, so I did get an extra visit, but that's because I had a complication.
Right.
When I didn't, it was 1 visit.
Right. And in my 2 postpartum periods, I'd had my postpartum visits, and then a couple of weeks later I went back again, but just to get an IUD in place. So
yeah, so that's a different thing.
Yeah.
So basically you were on your own.
Right.
So it's definitely time to change the dynamic in healthcare for new moms, especially as it pertains to the postpartum period, which is only slightly regarded. I think if you sit around and you have a casual conversation with a bunch of providers, OBGYN or midwives, or just those obstetric providers, probably I think there would be some consensus on our least regarded part of women's health care is the postpartum period. And for some of us, it's even the part we like the least. It is it ain't sexy. I'm sorry, but it's not. And so not sexy like, oh, you deliver babies? Nobody says, oh, you do postpartum care?
Mm-hmm.
People don't get excited about postpartum care, and it's just as important for many reasons that we can briefly talk about. But so it is slightly regarded. And I attended a conference last week. I think it was last week, where they talked about the evolution of neglect of postpartum, of how that developed. Like in the turn of the century, in the early 20th century, which is, you count back 1900s. So the reaction of family and friends would be after a woman gave birth, and, they did this at home. And so everyone would gather up and they would say, did she live?
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yep.
She lived.
Right.
And
did she bleed out? Did she have a previa that they didn't know back then?
They didn't know what was going on,
Right.
but she wouldn't stop bleeding and she didn't live.
Yeah.
Followed by, and there are other issues that came up in between, but followed by in another part of the era as medicine improved, that was followed by, did the baby live? because if the mom lived, sometimes the baby didn't live. But medicine improved, and so then they said, well, the baby was early, but did it live? Or other issues went on. It was 3 weeks late. Did it live? Is the baby normal? That became, as we got better at doing what we do. And then to current day, what's the most popular question?
How much did the baby weigh? How long is it?
Right. Not even what is it, because very often they know, so that's not a surprise, or they don't want to gender assign, or for different reasons. So they're not asking about the gender, but yeah, how much did it weigh and how long is it? Like that is so there's some judgment on mom on how well she did in getting that human onto the planet, that kind of thing. It's very interesting. And this has had an even graver effect on women of color. So, if you think of current day, just that whole interest in just the weight, but nothing else. And here, I wanted to, when I was thinking about, us doing this quick topic, there were some not so fun facts that I gave some thought to.
Yeah.
In this country, and we talked about this at the conference too, in this country, we spend more money on prenatal care than anywhere else in of developed countries, and our perinatal death rates are higher than most developed nations.
Yep.
And that's a sad statement.
It's
something
insanity.
It is insanity. People are aware of it, but we still have a lot of work to do on it. In 1965, the C-section rate was 5%. In 2020, it's 33, 35, so like a third of babies are coming out.
Yeah.
And
sometimes people will say, oh, well, we get patients pregnant now who wouldn't be pregnant before. And we have older moms but you know what? Still, that's an enormous increase in that number.
That is a crazy increase.
And who is affected more by C-sections, mom or baby? It's mom, right?
It's mom. Why is it mom? C-section is the most common major surgery performed on humans.
Wow.
Period. Look at all the surgeries across the board.
Yeah.
Black women die at 3 to 4 times the rates of white women. And many studies show that when Black women complain of pain, we in medicine are slower to respond. Part of that is that there's this misconception that we have a higher tolerance for pain. There are all these myths around it. We have thicker skin. We have thicker everything. We're just, we can just put up with things that. So we're not necessarily taken as seriously as when we make that first complaint. It might take a few complaints, which by a few complaints later, then you become a Serena.
Right.
And you're just a hot mess.
Yeah. Because
you're really sick. And so I just, I mentioned earlier that the nature of our business is such that postpartum period is like the least sexy part of our jobs. And that's when things most frequently go awry because we're not watching. We don't have our eye on the ball.
Right.
And
whereas when they're pregnant and when there's this liability involved, right, where we're like, oh, well, there's 2 patients and we got to make sure. And, baby's got to be good. We can't miss anything. But the baby's out now. So wiping my hands of you.
Yeah,
we're
later. Good. I got that kid out. I got it safely. Everything's good. So, this is when women get sick, or they get sicker during the postpartum period. When you're not watching, you turn your back on the situation. And so, I heard this MFM specialist speak, Dr. Neil Shaw, and he said, our job is to prevent all this. But he said that not dying is a low mark.
Yeah.
That's a low standard to try and not get people to die, to not get Black women, brown women, women, anybody with a uterus not to die.
That's like from, what is that actor who is in The Hangover? And he's always like, but did you die? Wait, is that in the movie, the Labor and Delivery? Oh gosh, what is that movie with Katherine Heigl?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, isn't that the one?
Is that called 9 Months? No, that's not.
Oh God,
I don't know.
All right,
I know what you're talking
about. We're gonna
though.
figure it out. But anyway, did you die?
Look it up. Yeah, did you die? No, you didn't die. But that's a really low mark. And so, and the other thing, I was thinking about, I heard him speak in something else that he said, I'm going to definitely attribute. He said, we run a lot of yellow lights when we're doing that business of, just obstetric care, but especially, when you're talking about postpartum care. So because people don't complain and they're occupied with the baby and they don't, they just sort of focus. The focus is not on mom.
Yep.
And mom could be getting really sick.
Yeah.
And so basically we have a runaway train. Along with a single visit for postpartum care. Oh, you'll get 2 visits if you have C-section, which is major abdominal surgery.
That's right.
And our current habits of ingrained and implicit system bias. We have the makings of a multi-episode podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, this is just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
true.
talking too much, but
no, but I think everything you said is super, super valid and actually, disturbing.
it is.
To hear someone say that, to say that, the marker in our country is like, well, you survived. So
Yeah, you didn't die.
yeah, I mean, that does go back to some of the things that we hear people say all the time that can be harmful that we forget about, like, oh, well, healthy mom, healthy baby. It's like, nah. Like sometimes there's other stuff in play, right?
Yes.
So, my first thought when I ever think about this is there are some women who are sick, like pregnancy is not just cut and dry, black and white. You have a baby and you're great or you're not. And so women who are sick, who develop issues during pregnancy, things like gestational hypertension or, the subsequent disease that comes along with that, preeclampsia, things like women who have diabetes during pregnancy. We check their blood sugar so closely till the moment that baby comes out and they're like, cool, you're good now, you're not diabetic. And it's like, wait, what? I mean, yes, by this sort of definition, are you any longer gestational diabetic? Well, no, but it's not like magically your insulin resistance is just like, poof, I'm great now, So
Right.
perhaps we should be looking in on that. Perhaps we should be following up on these, women who even just have borderline blood pressures. I see all the time where someone, doesn't quite meet the criteria. And then lo and behold, 12 days out, they're getting readmitted through the emergency room with preeclampsia. So that kind of thing happens. Even thyroid levels. We think, during pregnancy, again, we're so worried about, preventing, issues with the baby. We're worried about things like, mental retardation because their thyroid level is not right. So we so carefully monitor it and, we make sure it's great. And then the second the baby's out, again, it's like, okay, well, the mom's fine. And
got away with that one.
Perhaps we should be checking her for complications, including her thyroid. So these are just some of those sort of physical issues that we should really be looking closely at. And I think could use a re-examination, in that first couple of weeks. Additionally, and this is my biggest caveat.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But these are also things that are markers down the road.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Women with gestational diabetes, some studies show that 60-70% of them go on to develop diabetes outright,
right,
in their adult life without being apart from being pregnant. And gestational hypertension, those women also have a propensity to develop hypertension, in their later in their adult life. So it's just sort of pay attention.
Well, and these are things that we might, again, be looking at, if we're doing a good job on our chart review and everything at the postpartum visit. But again, there's so much else to do at that visit. So it's yeah. My biggest one, the one that gets me right in the heart still to this day, and it's so frustrating to me, is assessing women for postpartum mood disorders. And I can say, pretty confidently now, everything, retrospect is 2020. I can see back to where I was, and I am 100% certain that, a lot of the anxiety that I live and cope with today really developed in that postpartum period for me. And we are so quick to tell women, your hormones are going to change. First couple weeks, it's normal to feel, certain ways and let us know if it gets severe. And that's valid. But at the same time, I remember feeling not right, feeling embarrassed to say anything to anyone. And I was not being tough enough or not getting through it enough. And then, do you know, the person who really evaluated that I was having struggles was the pediatrician.
I knew you were going to say
The pediatrician was like, how are you? And I burst into tears and they were like, oh boy, but they could tell.
Yes.
And that's because they were seeing me.
Yeah.
And they're not caring, they're caring for the family unit, sure, but they're not caring for me. They're caring for my baby. But they could tell, okay, she's had those sweatpants on for 2 weeks.
And her hair looks wet.
And that hair is maybe wet, So like
it's not wet. It's not wet. It's
right.
It's not clean.
And postpartum issues can be really significant and can really impact. This is the time when you're supposed to be bonding with your baby. This is the time when you're, supposed to be healing. And when you have, mood changes and things like that going on, they can be really serious. And
this is why, a lot of women think that everything is supposed to be a certain way. So you're supposed to be happy, and you're supposed to. The picture that we conjure up in our heads is not necessarily a real one.
Yeah.
And so you feel some kind of guilt about crying for no reason, or your baby's healthy and you're not physically sick. And so why are you crying? And all these people are trying to help you.
Yeah.
So why should you be sad?
Yeah.
Because you get sad. It can happen.
Right.
It's some of it is chemical, some of it's like a perfect storm of things that during that time frame that we're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Like, baby good, you good? Okay,
yeah.
everybody's good.
Move along. Yeah. Additionally, women who maybe have a poor outcome or have a loss or who have a baby that's, in-house in the NICU, we're not checking in with these women. And those are things that I personally, my protocol is I call those women. I always ask them or sort of inform them, hey, I'm going to reach out to you in a week and I hope that's okay.
Aww.
And I do, but you can't always do that. And so sometimes women need to debrief and they don't realize that. And then they come, not that it's too late by 6 weeks, but then they come at 6 weeks and sometimes they've already sort of made up their mind on situations. And I remember sitting on my couch being like, I ruined my vagina and perineum forever. It's never going to get better.
Right.
I was like Googling, I was totally freaking myself out. And it would have been so helpful to have had a midwife or a doctor be like, hey, look, this is fine. You're healing well. It's gonna, so that reassurance, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we go into the women also, again, who have traumatic births, things like really significant lacerations, instrument deliveries.
Ouch.
We should be checking in with them sooner. Reproductive concerns. How many times, show of hands, how many times have you done a postpartum visit, had someone come back and they're pregnant? We're both raising our hands. I guess that doesn't translate well in podcasts, but if you could see it, you guys, you'd be like, dang.
2 hands up.
Yeah, 2 for 2. It happens. And again, we're telling women, nothing in the vagina and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes they need to really be re-examined, reminded. And honestly, sometimes their situation is such that they don't have a whole lot of control of it. Maybe they're in a shitty situation where they're being kind of assaulted they're obligated to do that. And
sometimes they aren't. Sometimes she wants to do that.
Right.
And that's what happens. And you said no thing. Did you say no human in the vagina?
Right. Did you say the reason behind it? Again, wellness of the family unit. I had a patient once who came in about 2 weeks postpartum. Her baby was screaming bloody murder, screaming. She'd had a C-section, and we asked her, when the baby ate, and she's like, oh no, it's not a big deal. She was formula feeding, and we fed the baby, and it sucked down, one of those little sample bottles, and we were like, this baby is starving.
Oh.
And so again, we should be checking in, and for her, she was a new mom, and she was and then she was mortified, and we were just like, it's okay, but sometimes you need help. You're in the hospital for such a short amount of time. Or, if you're delivering at home, a lot of times your midwife's checking in with you a lot more frequently, but still you're alone. So checking in. So what are the barriers? Like, this was my biggest thing. So coming out of school, I had this idealistic image in my head, like, oh, I wish we had a way to check in and go to women's houses, and I'm going to see my patients more frequently. But am I doing that?
You and your black bag?
Exactly. Unfortunately, no one's calling this midwife, it stinks. And so I would say one of the absolute biggest barriers, which is totally a bummer, is insurance. So insurance does this thing where it's the universal coverage for the pregnancy.
It's a
global fee. So from the moment we're like, you're pregnant until your postpartum visit, we get X amount of money. And for some people with great insurance and things like that, we might get a lot more. And for some people with not so great insurance, we get not so much. And I think that unfortunately that does sort of drive that, because you have to sacrifice some of yourself and that opportunity to be sort of making money.
Right.
And again, for a lot of us, we wouldn't care. We would be like, heck, yeah, just have them come in. And my personal policy is if someone calls me postpartum with an issue, I always have them come in. That being said, I mean, that may not be a great way to run a business. I haven't had to do that. So.
And the other issue with that is that that's usually, I can't even speak English today.
That's okay.
That's usually going to require a little bit longer visit.
That's right. And so we're given, 15 minutes. That's sort of been the standard that's been met for many people. And at my practice, we've worked hard to try to work towards at least 30 minutes for postpartum visits, but it's not always possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you supposed to address all these things in one visit in 15 minutes? Additionally, access to care. So, we definitely have patients, I'm sure communities all over the world have patients where it's really hard for them to get back. I have patients who sometimes don't come back. I have patients who come back pregnant again,
Right.
and we treat that as their postpartum visits, 3 days later, because they just were never able to come back. Maybe they don't have a car. Maybe they don't have money to take, public transit. Maybe they have no one to watch their other kids. I mean, it's there
are a lot of reasons.
Yeah. And again, people who maybe are sick or have babies who are sick and in the hospital that don't want to leave them, or, maybe they didn't have a good outcome and they don't want to come back because they don't want to see people with babies in the waiting room. I mean, all of those things, can affect that postpartum period, whether or not we're seeing those patients. But I definitely think the biggest take home from this is, yeah, we should reassess this and see how we can make it fit in.
We do need to reassess it for all the reasons that you mentioned, in addition to our own sort of biases, thinking that people are like, she's strong, she can muscle through things, she's okay, you're okay, it's gonna get better, and you're fine.
Yeah.
And so we do need to pay attention, even if it's more of phone calling or
absolutely,
that kind of thing. If you're not going to spend an office visit, just trying to make sure that folks are safe.
And something we can do as just women supporting women and people with uteruses and families and people who have new babies is when you are checking in with someone, or someone who you love and care about that's had a baby, check in with them. It is so easy to go see someone who's had a new baby and just be like, let me see the baby. Let me hold the baby. How's it? And guess what? That is a person, that is a person that you love, and they may need you to check in with them. And my, personal policy is my very best friend just had her second baby, a VBAC.
Congratulations.
Woo, 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 woo. We're so proud of her.
Yay.
Anyway, and my biggest concern, was her. And I think that sometimes that is sort of the difference between, midwives and the other, because midwives are with women, and my focus was so much on her and really still is. And of course, I love this baby, but, we need to be checking in with women. We're not there just to see their baby. We're there to help them, to offer assistance, to check in with them, and make sure that they're well. Bring food, bring toilet paper, don't stay too long,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Wash
their dishes. Yeah, exactly. Laundry.
And let them keep holding the baby as opposed to you hold the baby while they serve you refreshments.
Mm-hmm.
That's while the new mom serves you refreshments. That's not really appropriate. I try to tell folks.
Yeah.
That's not, I think midwives know better, because we don't really care we're not taking, people say we're midwives because we like babies, but that we do like babies, but we don't do this for babies. We do it because we take care of women. Oh, babies are so cute.
Just kidding. I totally love babies.
How could you not like a baby? Love a baby. But but peds takes care of babies, and we take care of women.
Right.
And so we're kind of our sensitivity is heightened to all of this. And so, yeah, definitely, consider mama.
And we want to hear from you guys about this topic. So if you want to share your postpartum experiences, your ideas, what you think about this, definitely please reach out to us. Like I said, we're going to repost that meme on our Insta when we release this, and we'd love to hear from you.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk some more about self-care.
Greetings, and this is Wine Time with Grown Ass Woman, an intergenerational conversation with Ife Michelle. I'm Sexy.
And Sharon Leanne. You make me want to add a name. Make sure you hit us up. We want to hear from you. Again, our email is
gawomenspeak@gmail.com.
All right, and we're back. You're listening to the Midwife Crisis podcast, Microsode. So we've reached that time, that lovely time of Self-Care Corner. And we want to know how we have loved ourselves in these past few weeks.
Yes, how have I loved myself? Baths, especially now that, it's cold weather up here in the northeast corner. So, hot baths.
Do you have a bathtub that covers more than just like below your belly button?
Yes, because when I
I'm so
did a
jealous.
bath remodel, I got a bigger tub. And so, yes, it does cover more than just my belly button. It's pretty deep. And
I feel like a cowboy in mine, like a cowboy in an old tin tub, just like tossing.
are your limbs hanging out of the tub?
Tossing water over my shoulders constantly. I got to kind of like slouch down. I got to choose either my upper half or my lower half. It's like, it's a whole thing.
Do you smoke a cigar and have a hat on while you're getting
I
bathed?
have to keep my boots on in case I have to jump on my horse and get out of there, you know?
You're going to ride your horse down the Old Town Road.
That's right.
Half naked. Anyways, yes, I use these products. They're called Luho Bar products. It's an apothecary. You can see it on. You can actually look it up online. And beautifully scented. So it's aromatherapy at the same time that you're getting, your skin sort of made smooth and that kind of thing. And I have the candles going and some tea or wine or whatever. And then just lean back until the water starts to get cold.
That sounds lovely.
It is lovely.
Did your kids like baths when they were growing up?
Just to play in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have my oldest take showers now, but it's like as quick as human in and out. Like he doesn't want to be in there. But my youngest is 4 and he still loves taking baths. And it's so cute. He'll be like, no, I'm going to stay in here. And he just rolls around like a little alligator. It's so cute.
That is cute.
I love that.
The boys took baths together. And so they, as long as they were playing, they were fine. My daughter still loves baths.
Yeah.
And so she encourages me, you should take a bath, Mom. You'll feel better.
I love that. That's my dream. I think maybe someday in my future I'll get a nice tub that I can really fit in.
Yes.
Until
Please
then,
do. Please do. Because
cowboy baths.
when we were kids, we took baths at my grandparents' in the yard in the big galvanized tub.
Yep.
And we were like, this is the best. Just taking a bath outside, trucks going by. We would make that gesture, honk, honk, pull down with your fists, and they would blow their horns, and we're out there buck naked in the little bathtub like a cowboy, basically.
Love it.
But I'm beyond that now, and I'm bathing in luxury.
Love it.
Which
Baths fit for a
Luho
queen.
means luxury. So, yes, definitely a bath fit for a queen.
We will link to Luho in our notes for this episode, as well as we can also repost on Instagram so you guys can check it out.
For sure. What are you doing for self-care?
Yeah. So my newest self-care, never in a million years would I ever have guessed that this would be a self-care for me. But starting the end of October, early November, I got really inspired by one of my very close friends who over the past, I think 2 years or so has intentionally lost an exorbitant amount of weight with just diet and exercise. And one of her exercises was running. And she is amazing and inspiring. And she hasn't done a full marathon yet, but she's done multiple half marathons, 10Ks, all these different races. And I was always like, I can't run. I can never run. I couldn't even run. Like in high school, I'd be like, oh, you know what happened? Weird. I broke my toe. Like I was like, it was the whole thing. I couldn't run ever. And I just thought I was literally born that way. Like I was pretty sure that it was built into my DNA.
Me
like
too.
If zombies are coming, like Jesus, take the wheel. Yeah, like
You're gonna get
it's
me.
over. But she really encouraged me. She was like, you can do this. I'm telling you, if I could do this, you can do this. And so I started as many a person starts with the Couch to 5K app in the late fall. And I am now almost through the Couch to 10K app. So now I'm routinely running like 3 to 4 miles 3 times a week. And it's so awesome.
That's
I love
impressive.
it. It is so cool. I never thought I'd love it. I am slow as molasses, but I always think, tortoise in the hare, slow and steady wins the race. I always finish. And it's been so amazing. It's been really nice to just get out there and like hit the pavement, literally. And all those things that I was scared of and all the aches and pains and feeling so out of breath, everyone always told me they'd go away. And I was like, yeah, that's not a thing. But it does. It gets better. And you kind of get to this sort of self-protective mechanism where you zone out a lot. And sometimes I'll be running and be like, oh, I don't even remember how I got here. I'm just like kind of, I know.
That's what I do in the car. That's what I do in the car. How did I get here? Oh, on the highway.
Oh, you guys, I'm going to take away her license soon. No, but anyway, it's been really super fun and really great, and I'm excited. It's helping me. It makes me feel good, and everyone's encouraging me. And I just really want to give a little shout out to my bud Jess. She knows who she is. She's amazing.
That's awesome.
I tell her all the time I'm channeling her. She's like, "You're my hero."
Oh, that's really cool. The bond between you guys and the fact that you're running and you never thought you could.
Yeah.
And it's good for you and your physical self as well as your emotional self.
I'm eating a little bit more carbs now too, which I feel good about because I'm using
what's
the
bad
energy.
About that?
I know. Well, I mean,
No,
so
I'm
I have
kidding.
PCO. We've been here before. We've been down this road, but I have PCO. So a lot of times I eat a lower carbohydrate diet. But I've been able to eat a little bit more carbs and still keep a nice, healthy blood sugar because I'm using them.
Good.
So it's nice.
Win-win.
Win-win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much. We've come to the end, so we would like to thank, as always, Baobab Tree Studios, all of our friends, our family, and you, everyone who makes this podcast possible.
Please be sure to subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Midwife Crisis Podcast, or email us at midwifecrisispodcast@gmail.com. And leave comments. Leave us your opinion. We're interested. We're like sponges.
That's right.
Until next time, nap when your baby naps and make yourself heard.
And give yourself time to heal from that birth.
Adios.
Bye.